Hi, this is Lou to discuss an element of many games, that is, vicarious participation. A definition: experienced in the imagination through the feelings or actions of another person, or experienced or realized through imaginative or sympathetic participation in the experience of another, or felt or enjoyed through imagined participation in the experience of others. In games, it can be your avatar as another person, or it can be an actual other person through Twitch or YouTube. So what's an avatar? This derives in great part from Dungeons and Dragons. It's something that represents the individual player, most commonly a humanoid. But it could be something else. And that's as in most MMOs, shooters, action games, tabletop role-playing games. It could be a general in a war game. It could be a spaceship, a tank in World of Tanks, a race car, even a pizza shaped like Pac-Man. Things happen to that representation, possibly even death or destruction. With a pure avatar, if it is killed or destroyed, you lose, at least temporarily. Now, there are other kinds of avatars that are not pure or real, whatever word you want to use. You can have an invisible or virtual avatar that can't be killed or destroyed, that things don't happen to, but this is less significant for game design. Often a general in command is of that sort. It's still a form of role-playing. A lot of people, when they play a war game, want to feel that they are the general in command. Now, avatars sometimes have a separate developer-provided history and personality, like Mario or Sonic. Or they can be a blank slate, so the player can more easily infuse his or her own personality into the avatar. So, avatars are typical in tabletop RPGs, and tabletop RPGs had a very strong influence on video games, especially in 2008 when Gary Gygax died, who was co-designer of D&D. There were lots of articles about how much influence D&D had on video games. RPGs haven't had so much influence on board and card games. So, in AAA video games, avatars are increasingly common, but not so much in casual games. Now, in the case of vicarious participation, the player puts him or herself in the place of the avatar. The player sees themselves in the actions of the avatar. The player can experience an explicit story through what happens to the avatar. So this is not role-playing in the sense of being an actor, which is a common point of view these days. It's role-playing in the older sense of putting yourself in the avatar's place. Now, what about Watch It Played and Twitch and such? This is one step removed from the effects of avatars, because you're watching others play the game, but it's still vicarious participation. In effect, the online players become your avatars, but you have no control over them. I confess I do this a lot for some video games. Why? Convenience, it's less work, and it's less frustration, especially with the incompetence of typical online players. The purpose of the game can make a big difference here. Games as intellectual exercises are much less likely to involve avatar-like vicarious participation than games that are substitutes for novels, and of course we have everything in between. Obviously, a novel is a much more fertile ground for an avatar because there are individual characters in the novel. What do designers have to take away from this? Well, there's a rising interest, if not a dominance, of avatars in games. This doesn't mean your game must have an avatar. Many historical conflict games don't have true or real or pure avatars, whichever term you want to use. They may not have an avatar at all. But my experience is that even in an historical game, Addition of a true avatar or even a partial avatar increases the interest in the game. And if you have a game that has no avatar, for example, a game that covers 1,000 years like Britannia and other sweep of history games, then some people are not interested in that because they can't identify me in that game. They can't find something to identify with personally. Designers, especially of video games, might also consider how well their game will work with Twitch and YouTube, because even for something like Dungeons & Dragons, Wizards of the Coast said not too long ago that something like half the people coming to the new version of Dungeons & Dragons have first watched it on Twitch or YouTube, watched it being played. So keep vicarious participation in mind when you design your games. Thanks for listening.